Hello there, my name is Ben Loomes. I am the CEO and creative director of Syrinscape, the original creator of Syrinscape and the leader of a team who works very, very hard every day to make your tabletop role-playing games come to life with epic sound and music. Today we're going to take a deep dive into why sound and music at the gaming table, why sound and music in movies, what sound and music does in movies, how it functions, and how you can use the power of sound and music in your tabletop games to bring them to life. Become a master manipulator of emotion and feelings and hormones in people's blood. So, yeah, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, then join me on this journey. I'm actually going to be quite detailed and wide-ranging and wander around. This is a result of a fantastic talk that happened at Gen Con 2018. I took a recording of that and I was going to edit it down. We went all over the place as a result of lots of really, really great user questions and things, and I thought it might actually be better to make a nice slick video and insert all the examples beautifully like I'm going to today. So bear with me, it should be awesome. If you haven't actually ever heard Syrinscape or seen the basic demo of it, pause this video and go and watch the kind of literally 90-second demo that I shall link to in the description above or below, wherever it is, and then come back here, because I needn't repeat that here and put everyone else through it. Right, I am going to do a little thing. I'm going to attempt to say the same sentence 3 times in a row with as little variation in voice inflection as I possibly can.
I knew your sister. She was a tasty morsel. I took her out one evening and it was a lovely night.
Okay. So feel that emotion. And exactly the same voice inflection. I guarantee I can definitely do exactly the same voice inflection.
I knew your sister. She was a tasty morsel. I took her out one evening and it was a lovely night.
Does that feel different? Is it a different character? Does he look different? What are his intentions?
I knew your sister. She was a tasty morsel. I took her out one evening and it was a lovely night.
That's definitely a different character. That's kind of getting more on the kind of spooky, sadistic, torture chamber kind of guy. Does that make sense? Can you see how the mood in the room is remaining uneasy? In fact, how it's affecting the way that I'm talking? Why? All sorts of technical reasons about the sounds we're hearing and our bass involuntary reactions to them, and the nature of the music, both harmonically and texturally and timbrally, which we'll talk about a little bit more into the future. So see the mood that's still in the room. If I dissolve it like this, feel the change. Part of why it's more relaxing and nice now is because we've got human voices in the mix. Human voices that are relaxed and pleasant, as opposed to those deep, disturbing gulfs in sound that were present in the Dungeon Depth sound set. Or that chromatic movement that was in the music of the Witchwood right at the beginning. So yeah, once again, musical technical reasons. So we can literally change the subliminal or even conscious interpretation of a scene by changing the musical context behind it. And I'm going to show you this cool thing. I shall put a credit in the links for the person who showed me this thing. Okay, make Syrinscape stop. This is a video that I saw at a lecture at PAX Oz. Here we are. Watch this. So this is the scene when Jack Sparrow arrives at the dock. Especially watch that moment where he lands in the Eden Main. So the music's going to change, yeah? For me, his actual expression has literally changed in my brain. And maybe what that water smells like, feels like. And kind of the tense urgency of the situation. He seems to be dancing to the music. One more. He looks so pensive and sort of sad. Yeah, fantastic. So there's a credit down below for the person who put that video together. So thank you very, very much for that. Absolutely awesome and really, really interesting, isn't it? So the power of the music to completely rearrange our perception of a scene. So I would argue if you are using only the power of your words and the tonality and color of your own voice as the description power, trying to shift the emotions of your players, then you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage. Why not get an automatic response straight away from the music and sound that you create, and then build further from there? Yeah, so not starting from zero and starting to push with words and description, which obviously you should be amazing at, and using all your 5-6 senses and all that sort of stuff. But getting yourself a massive head start in creating the scene and the emotional context by using music and sound. Now, what's really cool is that years ago, when, like say 5 years ago, when we brought out the professional version of Syrinscape, there was actually a version 10 years ago that I built originally, wrote it in Python and shared it online as donationware. You can see references to that still in forums. RPG.net forums are still there. The D&D forums disappeared, unfortunately. But 5 years ago, we brought out a professional version, and there were lots of... the argument for us to win at that point was you should use music and sound at the gaming table. Which sounds amazing, doesn't it? Because nowadays, everybody uses music and sound at the gaming table. And the argument that we're arguing now is why use Syrinscape? Why pay for music and sound? And I'm sure you'll see as through the course of this video why Syrinscape is an ideal tool, specifically, literally, designed for tabletop gaming, and to keep the attention of the dungeon master on the players and on the narrative, and giving them every advantage in leading that story. Now, do note that all these emotional manipulations and these scene settings should be happening subliminally. So you're wanting the sounds that the players are hearing to happen without them realizing it, without those sounds becoming consciously noticed. So we don't, when we're watching a movie, think, my gosh, the trombones just played a tritone. I think the heroes are in trouble. Or in the shower scene from Psycho, like the violins are playing a chromatic cluster. That means the girl in the shower is actually in trouble, and it's not just her happy neighbor coming to say hi with a knife-shaped shadowed object. In much the same way that almost always when there's camera angles, for instance, that imply danger to the person we're viewing, such as a low handheld shot from sort of slightly behind a bush, the implication being that the hero is being observed by an unseen observer. We're not wanting to ever draw attention to the facts of what we're hearing and how we're manipulating the players. Because if you do that, you actually break immersion. And one of the really, really important things, which we'll talk about, is the nature of the sound that we're wanting to use, the non-repetition of the sound, the naturalism of the sound, and the nature of the music as well, which is really, really super important. So let's talk about that right now. It's super, 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 super important that there are no obvious repetitions in the sound environment. The human brains are set up to catch repetitions and to notice patterns. We even are quite good at noticing patterns that actually aren't even there. So Syrinscape creates fully generative 3D environments that have no repetitions, because every element of the sound design is separated and randomized in direction, timing, volume, and all those things. So for instance, if we look at something like the Sandar laughing element of our busy drinking scene, it's not actually in the soft one, it's got a randomized time down every time that's different. And this one's going to come a lot faster. Okay, this one's a little bit slower. That one's a bit longer. And when you combine that with all the other elements, like Kira laughing. So notice if I turn them both on, then they'll combine in an ever variable different combination of combinations. Sometimes they might even laugh at the same time, or think they're going to. That's cool. But this time Kira's going to get there first. And then Santa. So that's just two elements, and you see they're cross-phasing and combining in various different ways. There's clinks of glasses. Even those laughs affect your mood. Excellent. Now the music in the scene that you're trying to create, it's very, very important that it has certain qualities. It shouldn't, for instance, have any obvious foreground element, especially lyrics. It also, for the purposes of tabletop role-playing, should be relatively uniform emotionally. So in a movie, you have music that's closely tied to the action, so that as the tension of a scene rises, the music might rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, and then there's a sudden change in the music as the scene changes. Maybe the goodies escape the building, or the building collapses, or something like that. Then if you have those big emotional changes and events happening in your gaming table, and they don't correspond to the action that's actually happening at the table, then you're taking the players out of immersion. And even worse, when there's recognizable movie moments from the music, you're going to actually attract the attention of the players to those moments in the actual movie and take them out of immersion of their own game. So you can see this one is just lute and oboe, and it's going to be relatively uniform. If we look, for instance, at the Starship music, once again, generalized epic drums, strings, no big fat obvious electric guitar, And that'll just go and go and go and go and go and go like that. If I do want to change the mood, like you would want to in a movie, then I actually trigger that myself. And that's how I control the flow and the emotional journey that the players are going on. I hope that makes sense. There are exceptions to this rule. So we've talked about keeping the effect and the driving emotional force of the sound and music subliminal, by making it naturalistic and non-repetitious. There's also lots and lots of other elements that go into the sound design of Syrinscape to keep that naturalistic feel, such as the correct application of the reverberation of the environment and all that sort of stuff. And actually good mixing and good voice acting are really, really important in that as well. And we've talked about how we keep the music appropriate, but there are times we want to draw attention to the actual soundtrack that's going on, and that happens in movies too. So let me once again bring up my YouTube little insert here again, and I'll show you some really, really famous examples of this. For instance, when James Bond does something very awesome, like finding the radiator right next to the bath and sticking it in and electrocuting the bad guy who was choking him, we always hear this. Yeah, you know that? Do-we-do, do-do-do. Super, super, super important moment. Now that's going to draw the attention of the listener to the soundtrack. What about this moment? We've had gradually building orchestral music, and then this happens in Lord of the Rings. Now, if you're playing a role-playing game and using the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, and suddenly the music does that, what are the players going to think about? So that's become a leitmotif, that little musical idea for an idea and a specific character. What about this leitmotif? As I turn down my phone. No one can hear this sound, especially if they're near the water, without thinking, I'm going to die because the sharks are going to eat me. So we can now use the power of Syrinscape to do the same thing. So once again, back to, and people actually do this quite a lot. They use this leitmotif. It's kind of narrative tension. So it becomes a cue to the players that we're building narrative, we're assuming a certain brain posture, a certain tension, a certain looking forwardness, which can be very, very useful for maintaining focus with your players, especially those who are easily distracted by technological devices. You can actually also use those single moments as well. In Syrinscape, there's this dramatic note. I like to punctuate dramatic reveals with that. Or this sound that I like to end battles with. Or depending on the style of the game, you can even use stuff like this. Or on a 1. Or of course, joyously, the day I realized the Wilhelm scream was public domain was a very, very happy day in my life. Here's a couple of cool quotes. The director of The Bride of Frankenstein said, "Lock yourself in a windowless room alone, turn out the light and put your radio on in such a way that all you get is screams and moans and unearthly noises of which are produced by static. So he had a technological solution there. Unless you are the rare exception, you will very hastily switch on the light, fully expecting to see some terrifying intruder in the empty room with you. So he's talking about creating an involuntary, irrational reaction purely by sound. Because, of course, you know that there's not a monster in there because you know the room is secure and you're safe and cozy in your house. You can feel that. You're not getting smells. There's all sorts of things you're not getting. But just the sheer power of sound is creating that grimness and that horribleness. Sound and music are 50% of the entertainment in a movie, George Lucas said. Wow. Does he really mean that? That's pretty epically strong. You'd actually just have to watch a horror scene of a movie without any sound and music on at all, and you pretty quickly realize just how lame, or naff if you're English, a horror movie can look without that soundtrack cueing those emotions. There are some technical reasons for why those sounds actually make us feel like that. So let's in fact show that. We have community content in Syrinscape, and one of the things that people do with that is to create collections of sounds from around Syrinscape in different places. And in the Strange Aeons, our Call of Cthulhu-esque adventure path, we had a thing called tension levels. And I did some research and heard that something that makes human beings feel uncomfortable is a big gap in between lowest sounds and highest sounds. So the basis of our horror sounds in Strange Aeons for the Pathfinder adventure game is this deep sound, and of course some kind of disturbing critter combined with the ringing in the ears of tinnitus. And that big void, remember we said before that's the thing that made the tavern sound nice and happy was the presence of human voices? Well, that whole oral landscape of human sounds is absent. That creates horrible, yucky tension. And with these tension levels, we've been able to gradually up and down the tension. Now you'll get this community content if you're a Super Siren subscriber, or you can use the Strange Aeons sound sets if they're available to you. Once again, deep sounds, drums, and then our most tense level is combat. And then of course we can back away and sort of relaxes. And then back away again. Alright, I'm going to give you some additional ways of manipulating emotions. Some techniques that you can use in Syrinscape to really gain control of the emotional journey at your table. So we're all about driving emotion by controlling the sound world. So here's some hints, as promised. What you want to really do, one of the most important things is to stop. Keep the sound dynamic. So once again, dissolving out of that tension space where it was disturbing into somewhere nice. Of course, it's not going to stay there for long. One cool technique, here we are, Bugbear Battle, is to gradually raise the volume. You can actually gain control of the actual vocal delivery and the posture of your players. So battle begins. Battle is queued, you roll for initiative. Things are quiet to begin with. Quietish. People are sorting themselves out, finding a rolling for initiative order, which is a very technical thing. Not really paying very much attention to the battle. You let things progress for a little while, and then just reach over and just touch that volume knob. And lift the music just a tiny little bit. Imperceptibly, of course, because we're doing this all at the subliminal level. Lift the volume a bit more. People actually have to maybe just raise their voices a tiny bit to get over the top of it. Boost the volume of the whole scene. People are maybe leaning forward a little bit. Boost the music again. I hope I'm not going to peak my microphone. Suddenly people are having to raise their voices, lean forward, maybe stand to be heard, articulate a bit more clearly, boost the music again, maybe once every 15 minutes or so, 10 minutes, because battles are very slow. Boost the music again, fill the entire room with the sound of booming music, trigger a dramatic moment. Make an explosion. Trigger some big loud spells when the wizard casts them. Boost the music. Everyone's leaning, shouting, trying to get heard. They're standing up. Certainly no one's sitting back with their minds on their phones. And when finally victory comes... Yes! And drop the music back. Hope that makes sense. It really helps to keep players focused, especially those who find attention maintenance an issue or a challenge. Another thing you can do is reserve sounds for particular moments. And one of my favourite gaming moments ever happened in The Haunting of Harrowstone, Chapter 1 of Carrion Crown. There's a big house there where the players come in on the ground floor, and there's a hole in the floor, and the monsters down the bottom are not yet level appropriate for the party. They need to go upstairs first. And my players were gazing suspiciously down the hole and desirously and temptingly. And I just reached over and just triggered this. Triggering the best response I've ever had, which is, we go back to town and become florists. Which I really, really loved. So yeah, they went upstairs and got some XP and some levels before they then ventured downstairs and pretty much died anyway, which was very, very exciting. Excellent. So why are these sounds scary? Why did that create that response in the players? Because basically, as I mentioned before, there's a basic fight or flight reaction. Literally puts adrenaline into the system, widens the pupils, lifts the eyes open, makes people want to feel like they're going to run and hide in a tree, because a big, deep voiced thing like that is going to be something that's going to eat you at the core level, no matter how far we've adapted away from the savannas. Just several tens of thousands of years ago, that sound would have meant would have meant lots and lots of danger. Another thing you can do is paint an entire scene, not just a single vague emotion. But check out this. Use an actual leitmotif from sound design itself. Certain anonymous alien cantina. You can actually tell from the sound what sort of place it is, how busy it is, the sort of people that are there, how safe it is. Pretty safe, but maybe a little bit you got to watch yourself. We're triggering emotions and connections with the Star Wars films, so that tells us a whole lot already about what might go on in this place, what sort of deals we could find, sort of people that are there, all without you having said a single word. So then when you start speaking, you can actually move on from that. So that's one drinking hole. What about this one? What's this drinking hole like? I loved playing this music. Drunken Bard. So this place is very different. It's almost deserted. The bar is made mainly of stickiness. And you can definitely catch things here. Whereas, what about our friendly tavern that we heard before? Yeah. It's more well occupied. People are happy. Obviously the food is probably fairly good. The musicians are properly paid. Excellent. Now hear that music. What if we change out that music with that track we were listening to before? In fact, let's do a different track. Let's do the pedal point. Now there's a very different emotion. We have the scene going on with those happy drinkers and everything, but something is afoot. Is there an Aragorn-esque character in the corner sucking on a cigarette thing and lighting up his face only by the power of the glowing sparks? Cool. So once again, you're making your descriptions more efficient. To set up that scene, all I did was started the friendly tavern sound, switched off the music, and went over to the Witchwood and turned that music on instead. And of course, I can now save that as a preset. Mysterious tavern. Boom. So when I want to get to that, Mysterious Tavern. Excellent. Once again, it should happen subliminally. I've reached over and just touched that one mood button with one click. I don't need to break the flow of my descriptions. In fact, I don't really need to say anything at all. And yet the mood in the entire room has changed fundamentally. So it's very, very efficient. And once again, there is no... that didn't happen automatically because it happened on the movie soundtrack. It hasn't happened every 15 minutes looped round and round and round and round because that's what the looped track does. If I want to go over to a quiet corner and turn that back on. So now they're over in the corner negotiating. Just with the sound of the fireplace, and the rest of the tavern is much quieter, and I can do that too. So I'm not being pushed around by what happened to come up next on the Spotify playlist, or by what happened in the movie dramatically. Make sense? Another thing I really like to do is to break the tension. I played a Call of Cthulhu game at Gen Con with John Kovalik and some other super cool people, and we had a lot of tension and a lot of the zombies trying to eat people's brains psychologically and all that sort of stuff. And then everyone decided to get to the library, and there was a hint of a car chase of who would get to the library first to find the book. So straight away I just triggered this, and all that tension completely drained out of the room, because you don't want to keep concentrating on a single emotion the whole time. Remember, in Hammer plays, when something terrible is about to happen, often you have a comic scene immediately preceding it to prime emotional reactions. And that was super fun. We then, of course, needed horrible stuff to happen in the same scene. So instead, I turned off that music, and I went to Undead here. And suddenly we have that same city with the same car horns and things. Maybe turn off the car horns. Car horn, there we are. And save that as zombie attack. Now I promised you'd see ways of why Syrinscape was the best tool for doing this job with the greatest ease, and you've seen me create several custom moods and hone the scene, adjusting things. Of course, if you want to turn on the rain, you can do that too, to make it even grimmer. Which you can't do with a YouTube video or a Spotify playlist or a set looping recording. Undead. That's probably about right there. Now I actually made a playlist for my game. Really, really important. With just the actual sound sets that I needed. There we are. I'm going to save zombie attack again. Overwrite that. Good. So, there's a few ideas. I hope you've seen why you would use the power of music in your games, and how music and sound are used to manipulate emotion and the dramatic flow of a game, and I hope you've seen some ways you can use Syrinscape to achieve those things and to really, really immerse your players, focus your players on in the game, create some fun and some excitement during the game as well. Those other horns. The car horn. I didn't turn that one off. Okay, good. I'll have to resave that preset. And yeah, so now is the time for putting some questions at the bottom. I'd love to hear some things that I've missed, some areas I glossed over or wasn't clear about, or maybe some things that I promised to explain by the way I was heading and then avoided. And I'll make a follow-up video to go with this and to link to it in the description as well once those questions come in. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking with me on the journey. It felt really, really worthwhile to get some of this info out and to really help people create atmosphere this year. Yeah, awesome. Remember, you can unlock everything in Syrinscape with a 30-day trial. Just search for Syrinscape trial. Subscriptions unlock absolutely everything in the vast amount of content, or of course you can just buy things one by one. Thank you for the amazing support that the community has been for Syrinscape over the last 5 years, last 10 years even, and we promise to continue to try and create better and better solutions and a greater library of awesome content to help you really create immersion in your games. And besides, the more content there is in Syrinscape, the more cool stuff I get to play with, which is super cool. Chainsaw Rev. So yeah, stick those questions in the comments, and let's keep this discussion going into the future. And in the meantime, game on, have awesome time, and really, really make your games epic with epic sound. Bye. Fantastic.